this is Hunter Biden, and you should totally vote for my dad because he's got a team of crack experts.
Hey, is anybody gonna pay for this dance, by the way? That's how I make my living.
Obviously, I'm at the ballet. I'm at the ballet, and it's time for the experts.
The truth has arrived.
I'll shake you down. I'm taking back my crown, 'cause I'm the best around. And my name, you shout it out. I want to hear it loud. You hang your head in shame. Don't you forget this day.
This is Jonathan Gilliam. Back in with your favorite podcast, The Experts. The truth has arrived. Sing it, Melissa. Melissa Bernos. It's going to be a good show, folks. Let's get it started right now. Coming up shortly with my good buddy Drago. That story is just amazing about how he was a Polish citizen. He was held in a Polish I guess it was a jail. It was like a re-education camp. That's what happens when you invite communism into your country. And then he got released. I'll let him tell the story. He's going to come up here in a little bit and tell the story. I don't want to ruin it for you. It's pretty amazing. He ended up coming to the United States and being a SEAL, serving for 20 years. He's amazing, amazing guy, amazing American, amazing man, and an incredible friend and brother. And we're going to get that in a minute. I want to talk about real quick, though. First off, I have to thank everybody for sharing this podcast. For it is climbing the charts like you just cannot believe. I mean, it is zooming up the iTunes charts, and I think it's going to be number one pretty soon. Because here's the thing about this podcast, and if it's the first time you're listening to it, this is what you got to know. It's called The Experts for a reason. The people that you're going to hear on this show are people that have been there and done that or are doing it right now. We're not going to have 20-year-old talking heads. We're not going to have people on here. It's podcasts. Doesn't matter what they look like, right? They don't have to be, and this is what TV hasn't realized. I talk about this in episode 1. In order to capture people's attention, they don't always have to be super hot. You know, that music has proven that. We don't celebrate Britney Spears because of her music. I mean, her singing is not that great. You look at the Stevie Wonder, you know, you look at Aretha Franklin. You celebrate those people because of their voices. They're singers, and it's unbelievable. And yet, nowadays, the people that are behind the scenes in music or the news and all this stuff, they think that, we got to have, somebody's got to be appealing to the eye. I guarantee you, anybody that's out there in the music industry, you may think you have these computer systems that tell you what this and that and who buys this and that. I can guarantee you this. If you put somebody out there that can sing, I think Adele has proven this, although I'm not saying Adele's not pretty, but Adele's not like, she's not, a pinup model, but she's an amazing singer. I don't get it. So where I'm going with this is we don't have to have that on this show. We're going to pick people to come on and I'm going to interview them because they're interesting, because they have a story to tell, because they have insight into things that you're wondering about on a daily basis, and because it needs to get out there. It's the truth. The truth needs to be known. And as you know, the truth has arrived. So that's what we're going to get on. Before I bring on Drago here in a minute, I want to talk about and discuss some of these crazy stories that are in the news right now. I've been, these podcasts, the way that they come out. So you know this, all right? The podcasts don't just come out like I don't just record it and put it out. There's going to be a little bit of a lag. Sometimes it's a day. It could be a couple hours. My first podcast was like a week behind. It's climbed quickly up the charts because of you all and because you're thirsty for the truth. You're thirsty for analysis that's real. And so that's what you're getting. And so there may be a little lag time on some of this stuff, but these stories, you have to realize that these stories they transcend time because of the stupidity of what's going on in this country and really around the world. But right now, let's focus on the country. In New York, okay, you already know in San Francisco, the reality of the homeless issue. LA is the same way. I was talking to an attorney today who's a big attorney and sports agent out in LA. Liberal. And again, we're going to discuss that later on because this liberal conservative stuff is ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest. You can't change a light bulb, as I always say, with an ideology. You can't fix problems. You can't fix the homeless problem with an ideology. But what can happen is ideologies can be responsible for the creation of policies. People will create policies based on their ideology, and if they're not thinking that through, if they're just sticking by the ideology, what happens is you end up giving people a reason not to work. You end up giving people a reason not to better themselves. And in the case of California, and not just California, but it's pretty much anywhere liberal, and when I say liberal, we're going to say, let's put it in this category, okay? Forget about liberal and conservative. As I always say, the Constitution should be your litmus test, right? Constitution tells you everything you need to know about how we keep people free and take care of people in this country. Everything else that you see, every other law, every other policy, the problems that we have, either came about because people didn't think them through and they were not educated enough or experienced enough and they didn't understand the reality of what's going on enough and they were in charge and they created these bad policies, or they have egos, or this is a bad problem, narcissistic, so narcissistic that they will strive to get into a position so they get the energy and they really are not good at their job. I actually believe narcissists are responsible for more deaths in the world than anything else. I think they kill more people than cancer. I think they kill more people than smoking. They kill more people than psychopathic serial killers. Narcissists are probably responsible for the destruction of more life than anything else. I mean, look at fires, for instance. All that in Australia. You think people are lighting forest fires because some of them may be psychopaths, but a lot of the people that light fires, they do it not because they have a fixation with fire, which psychopaths do, but they have a fixation with energy and they want attention. A lot of the times people who start fires are firefighters, believe it or not. They're firefighters. And they're people that want the attention to be able to know people and think of them as a hero. Also, you got people who they know when they watch TV that they started that. I guarantee a lot of these world leaders that you think are crazy, they're narcissistic. They feed off the energy that people provide them, negative or positive. I really think, what's her name? Meghan Markle, I think, the wife of Prince Harry. I think she's a narcissist. I think she's a narcissist, and she's destroying his life for sure because he's a chump and he's whipped, and I think that's what's happening with that. He's also a leftist. Very easy for her to pull his strings and tell him this crap. Okay, so what I'm getting at here is that with people that say they're liberal, okay, I said forget those terms. This is why. You say you're liberal. You say that's who you identify with as liberal. A lot of the policies and the things that you come up with I'm not saying they're not based in love of people and solutions that you want to fix, right? Homeless problems you want to fix, for instance. That's what I was talking about. I want to fix the homeless problem. And then somebody says, well, they're liberal. Okay, so they create policies because they think they're going to lift people out of homelessness or lift people out of poverty. I grew up poor, okay? Throwing somebody a lifeline and pulling them out of poverty, all it does is it puts them up on a level that they are not qualified to be on. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of the times people get into poverty or homelessness not just because they lost their job. I actually think that's a very rare thing, that people got on hard times and lost their jobs these days. Back in the day, it was a little different story. They didn't have subsistence like they have now. But what's happened now is subsistence is so supportive. In New York City, if you don't work and you are completely unemployed, you can apply for subsistence. You can get food stamps. You do not have to pay for food. You can even get, in some cases, either your rent reduced greatly, or you will get paid by the government in New York City like something like $1,200 to go live, and then you go get yourself an apartment that's $1,200 or less. I mean, this is how ridiculous it is. Somebody was telling me a story about a guy they knew that got out of the military, and he was a corpsman, and he got out, and he was married, and they had kids, and he lost his job, so they went on food stamps, and they went on some other subsistence, right? Then he got offered a job that was it was basically, I don't know, let's just make up a number. It's $46,000 a year, okay? I think it's probably more than that. But let's say it's $46,000 a year. It wasn't in New York. And he didn't take it. And one of his friends said, dude, you are a corpsman trained by the Navy. Why wouldn't you take that job? He said, because I make $45,000 a year without working in this city. Maybe it was New York. I can't remember where it was. He said, and it wasn't that he was being lazy. He literally made a tactical decision for his family. He said, why would I go work 8-10 hours a day for $46,000 when I could be home all the time, taking care of my kids, being with my wife, and the government pays me $45,000? Now, I want you to think about that. I would never do that on policy. I don't know who this guy is, and I would have slapped him if that was me next to him if he was a friend of mine. But you see how people can compromise their integrity and their reputation for that. So that's what's happening in places like California. I think that there's a lot of people who say that they're liberal and they want to help. But the problem is you're not helping. And when you take somebody who's in poverty or homeless and you give them a lifeline and you pull them up, if that rope is never ending, they will just sit there and ride the ride. They're not going to go and get a job and do what they got to do in order to lift themselves up if they're just being taken care of. Many, many people will not do anything. They'll just ride the ride. And that's a big problem when it comes to the liberal and conservative look. Now, the other side of this, and I'm going to play both sides here, is with healthcare. Universal healthcare is too expensive. There's no way we can ever do it. There's no way if we pay for it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, listen, I know a lot of doctors. Okay, one of my biggest mentors in life, Dr. Wally Graham, neurosurgeon, passed away, amazing guy, passed on. I shouldn't say passed away. I hate that word. Wally passed on. Wally is like my father and so many other, Ron Bell and so many other my mentors in life, they have passed on. They haven't passed away. You walk through a door, and we'll have another discussion about that another day. But imagine this, folks. Instead of charging you more money in taxes to pay for a program, what if the government, which wastes a tremendous amount of our money, what if they gave new doctors tax break, right? It's not like we're producing billions or millions, hundreds of millions of new doctors a year, right? There's only a limited amount of new doctors a year. And let's say that while they're in their residency, I don't know exactly how this goes, but let's say they graduate medical school, okay? They get their stamp of approval, you're a doctor. At that point right there, they could start doing routine medical exams, putting casts on people, things like that, and do it for free. And we give them a massive tax break. Massive. I mean, they got to pay back student loans anyway, right? So what we do is, if they're not, maybe some of these people come from the military, maybe they don't. So this is where you give them their service. This is how they serve. You give them a massive tax break, and they serve, and they give to the poor and to the homeless and people who don't have insurance. They give them a break by providing basic things for free. You know, checkups, minor injuries. Same thing with dentists. I mean, there's dentists. I don't know if most of you realize this. I was shocked when I heard this. Okay. I didn't know this. I was dumbfounded this. I know there's a lot of people who know everything out there, but I didn't know this. That if you don't clean your teeth and they get infected, that stuff can go straight to your heart and kill you. Yes, that's correct. The infection can spread to your heart and kill you. And that sounds like something stupid, but it happens. Dentistry and keeping your teeth clean, just cleaning your teeth is an important thing. Getting checked for cavities is an important thing. Why aren't we giving new dentists, or any dentist that wants to sign up for this matter, for service? So, you know, they serve 2 days a month doing free exams, and they get a tax break for that. I mean, it's really that simple. But you can't say I'm conservative, so I don't believe in free health care. You can't say I'm liberal and just say, oh, we should just dole out free health care for everyone. Veterans, for instance, why is it even a question? You serve in the military, there's military bases, there's military hospitals. Those people should be treated as veterans when they can in those hospitals. And if they can't, doctors, see, this is where I think that the people in the government get it wrong, right? The government doesn't give doctors tax breaks for helping out and giving free health care to people that they deem necessary, like veterans, for instance. And the doctors don't give it out. If I was a doctor, I'm not saying I would give out every single veteran that walked in, because, you know, if you have a job and you have health insurance, great. But if you don't have health insurance, well, and you don't have a job like that, why wouldn't you take care of a veteran? It's not like it's breaking your bank. But see, this is where we don't understand, you know, service and paying back and taking care of each other, and the government giving tax breaks. The government always thinks, and liberals and conservatives, we can't have health care, or we must have health care. We must tax people. I don't want to give up any taxes. Listen, forget about collecting more money. How about expecting service for your fellow man and the government giving tax breaks for that? That would cover the majority of this stuff. But see, here where I'm getting at with this. You can't fix problems with ideologies. You just can't. Even Christ himself, Jesus, in the Bible says that you should give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give unto God what belongs to God. I believe that the government and the founding fathers, when it was set up in a similar circumstance. But they didn't force it. See, that's the problem. God can say, give unto God what belongs to God, and then you choose that, right? But we live in a country where we depend on freedom. I think you should see that now in this day and age, the way it is. If we don't stand up for our freedom, if we don't take care of each other, if we don't build a strong, responsible, conscious, because most people walk around like they're unconscious, a conscious society of citizens, then our freedom will disappear because somebody will take it from us. There's no doubt about it. So I believe one thing that the founding fathers got wrong, and I don't think they got much wrong. In their day and age, it wasn't wrong. In this day and age, it is. I don't think it's the Electoral College. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that the voting process is wrong. I don't think that the way that the founding fathers had the representative set up was wrong. I think the way it's been bastardized and manipulated, where they have counties like to get AOC elected, and the way they divvy up all these counters based on race, I think that's stupid. You're Americans. Forget about race. You should get this many representatives for your state, just like the Constitution says. But I do believe that mandatory service in some way, shape, or form should have been a part of it. I do. I know why they didn't do it, but I believe in this day and age, what we've discovered from there to now is that some type of service helps people realize that their citizenry and freedom, they come with a price. And so when we look back at things like the homeless crisis in California, as I was talking to this guy at Newsmax about where he lives out there, and he says, he can't go have a dinner without looking over outside the window, and some homeless guy's out there picking his nose. His son says that he can't even go to work, or not work, but he's afraid to go out in the evenings because there's literally so many homeless. Many of them are kind of crazy or violent, and he just doesn't want to go out. He's just nervous about going out. And these are problems that could be fixed not through ideologies, but by effective thinking and looking for solutions. But that's not what they do. That's not what people have been led to believe. That's not how government officials work. And I think it's crazy. I was on Breitbart earlier this week, and Alex Marlowe was interviewing me, and I brought up something which another caller after, and I'm kind of surprised by this, to tell you the truth, that it was the guy identified as a Democrat and said he was liberal, and he disagreed with something I was saying, and Alex agreed with and said that he wouldn't debate, some people he doesn't debate about certain things. But this was the point that I was making. You tell me, what do you think about this? You can tell me on social media. Twitter, @Gilliam_seal, and Facebook and Instagram, Jonathan T. Gilliam. I think that if you're a congressman or a senator or the president's a little bit different, but, well, I will say this about president in just a second, but congressmen and senators, right? Or mayors or governors. If you have an office and then you want to run for another office while you're in that office, you should make a decision. Do you want to be mayor or do you want to run for Congress? And if it's time for you to if you would feel like right now it's time for me to run for Congress, then you should leave that office. Same thing with Congress. I know congressmen only serve 2 years, very short term, and then they have to go through it again, right? But this whole process of I'm going to campaign or I'm going to go from Congress to Senate, if you can't, and I do think that is too short of a term for Congress, okay? If you can't do your job because of your aspirations, I think you should leave that job. If you want to run for Senate and you think that's where you're being called, then you should go and you leave your job and go run for that. If you're a senator and you're running for Senate, you should just go back home and let your constituents decide on whether or not you did a good enough job. Same thing with representative. I don't agree when the president of the United States is running for re-election and they fly all over the country in Air Force One campaigning. I don't necessarily agree with that either. I don't like the political side of leading the country and running the country. With presidents, it's a little bit different because they're kind of they're the CEO of the whole country. But congressmen and representatives, they have very small areas, especially representatives. Go home like you're supposed to as a representative. You're not supposed to be in D.C. full time. You're supposed to be with your constituents. Go home and meet with those people. If you feel like you want to run for president and you're a congressman, you're running for a completely different job. And you can't go all over the country, whether you're a congressman or senator, and wanting to run for president. You can't go all over the country and do your job. We didn't hire and elect staff members, right? We elected congressmen and senators. I don't care how you staff it. It's become this big bureaucratic thing where you have all these staffers. How you do your job, that's up to you. If you want to do it like everybody else, hey, that's great. But if you want to run for this other job, you shouldn't leave running your district or, whatever it is that you do up to those staffers. That's a big problem that people don't realize. These congressmen, senators come and go. Those staffers stay there forever. I don't agree with that. That's a dangerous thing. That's a shadow government. That's a deep state technique or tactic right there. The congressmen and senators that come and go, those staffers are the same staffers all the time. I know a couple staffers who've worked for like 3 Congress people, Right now, whether they hire them back, I don't know how that all works, but they never left that office. And that allows a freedom to those congressmen and congresswomen to roam about and do the things that they do, which is not their job. And I was saying on this show with Alex Marlowe on Breitbart News in the morning that I think if these people want to run for president or if they want to run for higher office, they should leave the office that they're in if they can't do the job. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What other job are you going to be able to do? Let's say you work at IBM, for instance, right? And your job is manager of compliance. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But you want to be the CEO. You want to run for the CEO. But you got to go all over the country to go campaign for CEO. You got to go all the offices of IBM all around the world. Well, they wouldn't expect you. That's not how they get promoted at IBM. But let's say they were. They're not going to expect you to go and run and do all this stuff and campaign and go all over the country or all over the world and forget about your compliance job and just leave it up to your staff. What good are you? We're paying you for a job at that point that you're not even doing. And when we look at all these things, going back to the homeless thing that I was talking about a minute ago, we look at all these problems. It all comes back to the fact that we don't have enough service by American citizens, and we have politicians and people that follow them like blind puppies that are hell-bent on ideological decisions and not effective solutions. And we are never going to fix the homeless problem or anything else until we get to that. I'm looking at a story right here. Bellport, New York, man released without bail, okay, because now in New York State, not just New York City, New York State, they have a no bail law. So for many crimes, nonviolent crimes, and even some lighter violent crimes, in this case it was DUI or DWI, they call it here, he killed a man who was an Uber driver who was paying his way through medical school, I guess. He was drunk, this guy was. See his name here. Jordan Randolph, 40 years old, has a rap sheet as long as my arm, and was drunk again and killed Jonathan Armand Flores. Man, what a name. Maldonado. So Jordan was driving drunk and killed this guy, Jonathan. And because there's no bail law, they just let him out. He's walking free, folks, after homicide and really murder because he knowingly got behind a 3,000-pound vehicle drunk. You see, I don't know who made up these stupid, asinine, shitty laws. This no bail law here in New York, but they should be put in jail, and they should be, listen, if the citizenry in this country had any balls at all, they would be going and they would forget about liberal or conservative. They would round up all these politicians and they would try them and put them in jail. Because that guy, Jonathan, was murdered, and potentially more people could be murdered because of their laws. If in New York State, if you're sleeping at night, now imagine if you're a female, okay? You're asleep in your bed, and you wake up, and there's a stranger standing in your room. And you call law enforcement. He tries to get him in. The law enforcement come in there, and the cops grab him, and they arrest him. That guy is going to be booked and released. Now, let's say he's crazy or he's fixated. Let's say it wasn't a robbery. What if he was about to rape her, but he got arrested first? Well, they're not going to charge him with rape because he wasn't raping her. But let's say inside his own brain, that's what he was about to do. Because of this dumbass law that they created here in New York, the legislature in New York City, this is a law, not a policy. It's a law, okay? Because of that law, And because these people voted on in their liberal mindset. Remember, you got to think, folks, if you say you're liberal, you better think twice about this. You better think twice about following politicians and people who make laws based on an ideology. If you voted for that, for those people, they made a law that if it was you and you're a female and that guy's fixated on you and he's about to rape you, but he doesn't. Somehow you got lucky, right? You got lucky. The cops came there and arrested him. Guess what? He's going to get booked and he's going to get released in the state of New York. And if he's crazy enough to be fixated on you to come into your apartment, who's to say he's not going to go right back into your apartment and finish the job that he didn't finish before? And these people didn't think this through. And it's crazy because you all keep voting for these people. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Let's see. I'm going to pull up some other stories here. So this isn't even in the United States, okay? German chancellor urges all parties to back Iran nuclear deal. Okay? She's a fool, first of all. She's one of the people responsible for that, bringing all those quote-unquote refugees out of Syria. First of all, nobody really knows. The war in Syria is about as mysterious. The reason for war in Syria is about as mysterious as how Jeffrey Epstein made all his money, his billions. Nobody really knows how Jeffrey Epstein made his money. Well, nobody really knows why this war in Syria is happening. I mean, there are people will tell you that, it's for this or for ports or, proxy wars between whatever. The fact is, if you look at that, and I think it's the same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein didn't make his billions from running a hedge fund. Jeffrey Epstein made his billions because he was either, I believe, and I think there's enough evidence to show this, he was either an agent for an intel agency somewhere in the world. I don't know who it was. We shouldn't assume it was anybody because you never know who it was for. Or he was the world's largest pimp. That's how he made money. When we look at Syria, I don't care why they say the war was there. The only thing that's come out of that is millions of refugees that have been spread around and that are ruining the cultures of other countries. To an extreme level, because they are not going to assimilate into the countries that you can't bring them out of a country that has traditions that are thousands of years old. Beat women, machismo type of attitude, fight at the drop of a hat. You're not going to take that and put it in Sweden or Germany, as Angela Merkel wants, and expect it to just flow. It's not going to happen, right? So this is globally. And our president of the United States, Donald Trump, disagrees with this about the Iran deal, right? It's ridiculous. I think Iran's proven to show that they're not trustworthy, that they're very dangerous, and that what we're seeing now, that the regime is not quite the same line and step as the majority of the citizens who were free and want to be free again. But this weirdo, Angela Merkel, wants to go back to that. And there's liberals in the United States that support her, support Obama, who had the same policies, and other people just because they say they're liberal and they're the Democrats, and these people have created Obama in their minds as though he was some savior. It's ridiculous. It's not real. He gave over $1 billion in unmarked bills to $1 billion, folks. Do you know what you can do with $1 billion? Do you know how much proxy war you can wage? How many of your enemy you can kill with $1 billion? and he gave them unmarked bills. And there's still people out there, liberals, that would side with what he had to do because they don't think it through. They don't realize the reality of how intel operations work, how nefarious these people are, and the things that they will do to get what they want. Ideologically or greed or narcissism. I don't know how many, I would be very interested to find out how many people listen to this podcast that have been snowed by a narcissist once in their life. I make it a point when I see narcissistic tendencies in a person, and I advise that you go and read up and research those tendencies, those behaviors. Get away from those people. They will suck you in like a tornado and chew you up like a freaking one of those things they grade trees with after Christmas. I mean, it's bad. And so when we look at this, see, it's not just here; it's all over the world. It's all over the world. This left and right and liberal and conservative game that they play. I mean, look at the people that get put in charge over and over again. James Comey's daughter. She's the lead prosecutor on the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case. What? I mean, how could that even be possible? But it is. It is. Because of the way that the deep state is made up and the way that nepotism runs, the way that narcissists get their, like a narcissist like James Comey would be getting off because his daughter's in charge of that. But if you think his daughter's in charge of that just through coincidence, you're crazy. You're crazy, folks. Another one, I was talking on the news today about this on Newsmax. Some of the Saudi service members in the U.S., they're now being expelled after the NAS Pensacola shooting because they were... Nobody bothered to do background investigations on their social media to find out that they had tweeted out or on their social media pages jihadist material. Many of them had been on or had child porn stuff on their computers. Liberal policies, stupid policies, even some conservative policies, stupid to think that we can bring people, over 800 of these pilots who are flying machines that literally could kill 1,000 people just by crashing them into something. We bring them from a country that teaches hate to hate us. We bring them over here and then we train them to fly inside our country. What are we doing? These are policies that have not been thought out. Ridiculous, stupid policies. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a bit with Drago, because I'm really interested in seeing how he sees it. Because, like, listen, I'm not just pumping Drago up because he's another SEAL, because he's my SEAL brother. This guy grew up in communist Poland. He says socialist because that's what they called it, but the reality is that communism and socialism are not that far apart. And as you can see, the closer you get to communism, the worse life becomes. And so these ridiculous policies that we see and that I've talked about, and the things that are occurring in this country, the way that the young people are becoming really just dumber, the smarter these phones become. Well, we all basically, it's not just young people, but the reality that people live in is void of historical references to communist and socialist countries. All these things that I'm talking about are that way. But let's take a break real quick, and then we'll come back, and I have Drago, where I'm going to pull him up on the phone, and then we'll discuss this with Drago, see what he says. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I know if you're hearing this commercial, you're probably listening to this podcast, The Experts. Well, I just wanted to share this with you real quick. go get my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It teaches you the art of attack and defend. That's the technique that I've learned and crafted over years of being in the SEAL teams and being in the FBI and all these other areas that I've worked and functioned as an attacker and as a defender. So the book gives you the understanding of how attackers look at you and how you can take that knowledge and then turn around and use it to build better defenses, awareness, standard operating procedures, and plans of action. Now, there's 2 workbooks that go with it. The attacker workbook, which is the threat assessment workbook, and the defender workbook, which is workbook number 2, where you take and build your defensive policies for your life, your family, your business, whatever, and you base that on what you learn from Sheep No More and what you apply in the threat assessment. If you want to make your life safer, your school, your home, anything any part of your day, I call those sectors in the book. You divide your life up into sectors and you look at those, you can make it safer by using this technique. And also now, available for pre-order is The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. Incredible book of pictures drawn by Danielle Kreiner. Very iconic images. They're kids, cartoon characters of kids based on all my dogs, Rico, Jesse, my mom's dog, Bonnie, Sue, and every cat that's ever lived. They're pretty much the same. Sorry, cat lovers. But it's an incredible book. And what's really unbelievable about it is when we get the website, Team Little Bigs, finished, you'll be able to go on there and get lesson plans so that you can literally sit and make sure that you're teaching your kid these things. So the lesson plans will point out what lessons are in the pictures. They're embedded in the pictures. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and the whole Sheep No More series. Get it. Make your family safer. Anywhere books are sold, go get it.
The truth has arrived.
You're dang right it has. All right, let's get back and let's do the interview with Drago now and call him up. Give me just a second and we'll get him on the line. Drago.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me over in your show.
You got it. And so let's just start off. You were a Navy SEAL for 20 years. How long exactly were you in?
20 years. I retired after 20
years with 100% disability, which means you got your ass kicked while you're in there.
Oh, we all did, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, we all did to an extent.
Yeah, nature of
the beast. That's right. That's what we sign up for. But you didn't just sign up for this. I mean, this was something that, and I think a lot of people who end up going through SEAL training, they do have a quest of a higher calling. For me, it was the story of Job, and I'll tell this some other time, but it was the story of Job in the Bible of giving up everything, or in the case of Job, he had everything taken from him, but I wanted to give everything up. I grew up poor, I grew up with nothing, and I grew up with a love of country. I wanted to give up everything that I had and then test that love of country, my trust and hope and hope in God, that he would guide me to the right place because I was already an American citizen. But for you, it's a different story. And I think your story directly reflects on what is occurring right now with this push from the left and many of the establishment people on the right, this push towards socialism, democratic socialism, whatever they want to call it, which is really a stepping stone for communism. And so let's just talk about the reality of Poland. And I think along the way, people can go look up on Wikipedia and see the differences on the dictionary, the difference between communism and socialism. Not a lot of differences, but they technically called Poland a socialist country. But was it really socialist or was it communist?
It was socialist country, but pretty much not much different from communism. Even Soviet Union was not pure communist country. It was socialist country because they realized there that you cannot just implement the craziness of communism. It has to be some stepping stone, some transition period, what they call socialism. And this is how they came about. And they never implemented the full communism as per dictionary, per book, or Karl Marx and Engels, but But they tried, and the results, whatever form of socialism or communism they try to implement, is an utter disaster. And as you know, it cost millions of lives around the world. And yes, that's a very dangerous system, whether you call it socialism, Bernie Sanders socialism, national socialism, or democratic socialism. Right. It's a very dangerous concept.
So you were born in Poland, and you were born into socialist Poland, correctly? Am I correct?
Yes.
So, and your mother, we've talked about this before, your mother was a part of Solidarity, so she was actually a freedom fighter as well.
Yes. She was involved from the very beginning, and we never, I think in Poland, socialism and communism was always very unpopular. It cost so many lives in thousands. Matter of fact, even today, they are still citizens are still finding mass graves of political opponents of socialism and communism in Poland.
If it was,
I think the last case was 2-3 months ago.
If it's that unpopular, how did it get instated?
By force, by trickery, and there's the same thing what is happening right now in our country, when we have the Democratic Party trying to overthrow our president and change the system and fundamentally transform our country. It's very dangerous.
So when you were a child, or you were growing up, you were poor. I grew up poor. You grew up poor. You told me a story about how your mom used to stuff newspaper into your clothes. Tell that real quick.
Well, it was in Poland very cold, but we did not have warm clothes. We could not afford nice warm clothes.
But Drago,
so we supplement our clothes with the newspapers.
Drago, that's not what people believe socialism is. They believe that socialism in the United States, they believe that they're going to give you what you need.
That really makes me laugh. Why those people don't look to Venezuela, Cuba, or countries behind the Iron Curtain when Iron Curtain existed? They can learn, I think, some of it, or talk to people who immigrated, I would say, escaped from socialist communist countries.
And just so I'm keeping a list of words that you say that you come up with your own creation, like curtain. You say Curtain. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna keep a list. Maybe I'll tweet those out.
Curtain, yes. Okay. Iron Curtain.
So go back now. You were poor, and your mom would stuff your clothes with newspaper.
Well, that was not the wars. I think the more difficult for us growing up in Poland, for my siblings, was the hunger, because there was never enough food, and very often people here may not understand, may laugh at it, but at that time, if my mom didn't get up early enough, at around 3 o'clock in the morning, to stay in line to buy bread, at 7 o'clock we had nothing to eat. So we went to, and it happened quite often. We went hungry to school because there was not enough food. Most of the food actually was rationed. I don't remember. I think I was allowed to eat by the government, I think like a half a kilogram of meat per month, and it was very bad. The food was rationed, and in the 1970s and 80s.
Wow. So
you had the coupons, special coupons for meat, for bread, for this, for that, and you can buy only so much. If you run out of it, you're out of luck. You're hungry.
Wow. That's great. That's crazy, because there's no way, when I hear you tell these stories, there's virtually no way to climb out of that in that country. In the United States, you're poor. You can always work more and manage to get yourself out. That's where I do think, some welfare aspects of welfare temporarily are good. I don't mind paying some taxes to help people climb their way out of poverty. But when we look at the situation that you were in, there was no climbing out of it.
Oh, absolutely not. Where would you climb? That was, and people understood it. They wanted to get out and run away, escape from the system. So the entire Soviet Union bloc and Warsaw Pact countries become big labor camp and big prison. People were basically imprisoned there. They couldn't leave. It was not easy to leave. There was a very dangerous system.
So, with that system and your mom getting involved in this, how did you end up going to prison, this communist prison?
Well, eventually people had enough of it, enough of political murders, enough of intimidation and lies. So they started organizing themselves outside of the official government structures. And one of these organizations that became to life is Solidarity.
Right.
It was the first in the Soviet bloc independent trade union from the Communist Party. So my mom was, of course, involved, and I got involved in it. And we were having hopes that we can abolish socialism and communism in Poland, but it was dashed in 1980 to 1980 with the martial law, when communists and socialists realized that they are about to lose the imposed martial law, and they I think in one night they imprisoned around 25,000 people, and not because they were criminals. That was just the reason for imprisonment was the way they was stated is the individual could be potentially dangerous to the state.
So
that was they were not criminals. They didn't have any sentence. I mean, most of these activists, they were just put in prison and concentration camps and kept there until the situation, until communists were able to stabilize.
Just to get them out of the way.
Yes, just the communists. I'm saying communists and socialists.
So
because socialists and communists cannot sustain itself.
Right.
They need a slave labor, and eventually they need to use force and intimidation to stay at power.
Because it's a Ponzi scheme of freedom. They keep it going, saying that you're going to be, this is going to be good. We're going to do this. We're growing. We're doing this stuff. But that never actually comes. And you actually were in an environment where martial law existed. And people always talk about, you got all these conspiracy theorists that always try to pump up stuff like when we do our war games in the military, saying it's going to be martial law. The reality of martial law is that it is basically being in prison without having to be in the prison walls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when that happened, how long was that when you got put in jail?
Shortly after. Of course, people had taste of freedom already by this time because Solidarity, the trade union, was operating for about a year and a half. So people really didn't want to give up that freedom that they fought for peacefully, of course. And they start fighting back with writing underground bulletins, newspapers, and magazines, identifying the shortcomings of communism, socialism, spelling out some of the things about socialism and communism. And of course, that led to political war, even more atrocious. They started locking up people and sentencing people to prison times and threatening death sentences as well when they couldn't control it. So I was one of those people involved in creating underground structures, printing underground newspapers and magazines, and we got caught. So I was sentenced to 3 years of prison time by the military court.
And so you spent how long in there?
Almost 2 years. I don't have exact dates right here in front of me. Yeah. But it was enough to feel it.
And you were in there for. Here's the thing that I want everybody to understand by this: you weren't in there for murdering. You weren't in there for brandishing a weapon. You were in there for wanting freedom.
Yes, exactly. There was no. Most of these people like that at the time, were locked up for activities against the communist state. So that was enough. For that they didn't have to sentence. You didn't have to go even to court. They just decided you could be potentially dangerous to the communist state or socialist state, and they just lock you up, and they kept you there as long as they deemed that you could be dangerous.
Because I think there's two lessons here that could be to both a lesson for each side. First of all, of course, the most obvious lesson is for all these young people who are craving socialism. They don't even realize they haven't gone and looked at modern day like Venezuela, look at China and look at what happened in Russia in the past. They don't look at Poland and what they went through. They just totally believe that this socialist mindset is, or the gift of socialism is you're going to get everything that you need, and that's not the case. The other thing is that you were an individual, and I think this is something that all Americans can look at. You were somebody that you were not born free. You were not born free. I was born free. You were not. And you had a longing to be free. And I think Americans need to realize everybody that has every human that's ever existed in this world that was not free longed to be free. They didn't just accept where they lived and wither in it. They longed to be free once they realized that they're not free. And I that should really hit home with the people who are either afraid we're going to lose our freedom, or the people it should cause pause to the people who are willing to give it away.
People should be afraid. And especially now, if you look at the Soviet Union bloc when it existed, people were basically slaved, and for socialism and communism to sustain itself, they did have to implement draconian methods of terrorizing people, and that's what's going to happen here if we let it happen. I mean, we already had a taste of it under Obama administration during the first attempt to fundamentally transform America, where IRS was weaponized, when FBI was weaponized, and when even CIA and other state entities were weaponized. And this is the hallmark of totalitarian, dangerous Marxist state, though the state entities are compelling, intimidating, and terrorizing people of different views, if they have different views that are not convenient to socialists.
Yeah.
And you can see what's happening in our country. All these movements that they are being encouraged by Democratic Party, like Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter. Those are nothing else but terror groups, and they already intimidate people. I mean, think about just to have to vote for the president of your choice is becoming dangerous in the United States right now. There are all those wackos, those terrorists running around and attacking people just for any a show of support to our president.
It's crazy, and I don't think people realize the level that it's gotten. I mean, having conversations with you where you are saying, which you will say in this interview, I'm sure, where you are looking at things that are happening now, and they are the exact things that happened in your country. That is a scary, shocking thing.
It should be.
It's got to be weird for you. I mean, it's got to be strange.
I tell you, yes, and let me tell you this. When I, in my time behind Iron Curtain in Soviet type system, I have not seen so much hate towards the United States like I see right now from the Democratic Party. This is just incredible. Those people. Are they Americans? I counted terrorists in Iraq, and I haven't seen as much hate towards America there as I see here from Democrats. It's just stunning.
Wow. So when you, how did you get out of prison?
Well, John Paul II, a pope, was coming to Poland with his visit, with the second visit. So communists and socialists decided to they announced amnesty for political prisoners. So I was one of them, and they let us go. But it was just illusion because many activists, those more important, more dangerous to communist state and socialist state, they were kept in prison still. Nevertheless, most of us got out, but then the terror didn't stop there. We still had visits from police, the state police, intimidation, and even murders. So I decided to ask for help, and I went to a place where I always understood as a country where people are free, and the country that is a beacon to the world, beacon of freedom to the world. So I went to the U.S. Embassy and I asked for help. So I left. I was granted political asylum, and I came to the United States.
And how long of a process was that? Like, you walked in the embassy. How long was it before you were in America?
My process was fairly quick because I think that people there understood the danger that we were in, so they tried to help us. So within, I think, 3 months or 4 months, I got a visa and permit to come to the United States. So I was flown to Germany first, to the Center for Immigrants, where we were taught about the United States history, the rules, and that was very educational, and how to start the life and how to be productive member of society here. I have really good memories of it. And then I came to the United States.
Anywhere in that process, did they tell you that socialism is coming to America and it's going to be great?
Well, no, nobody said what socialism. They of course they tell us how great the country is, and we already knew that. Yeah. But that's what ironic is that we escaped socialism. I was lucky to escape socialism, coming right now to people pushing socialism back on us again.
And you've been here for how long? How long have you been here?
Since 1984, so quite some time.
So, but it seems like a long time, but in that time, socialism has creeped its way in here and left Poland. That's crazy.
You know what? It's crazy. Not only left Poland, left even Russia. Russia, they realized that this is not the way to live, to run the economy, and they abandoned it. So I think maybe all these wackos and all these Warrens, Bernie Sanders, who never had a job, will go and they came here. They try to push it now, this very dangerous system.
It's a very incompetent system, and an illegal system. That's what people don't realize and why I don't know how we're even entertaining socialist candidates for president, because there's laws on the books that say that they can't have any other form of government besides what we have. Most people don't even know that those laws exist. I didn't know they exist until I talked to Louis Gohmert, and he told me about that.
I think it happens because we lost a battle. We didn't lose the war yet, but we lost the battle on educational front. We have kids going to school and learn anything but history of the United States, history of the world. They don't learn these things that they need to know to keep our country safe. They know about Nazism. Well, that's actually also a form of socialism. They know that. They know about fascism, but they don't know much about communism and socialism. And I tell you, today, if you would drop most of these, many of these kids in the middle of the Venezuela, they wouldn't know they are in the middle of the communist country. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't know what the communism is, socialist country.
Right. Do you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
So when you came here, when you first came here, I know you said you went to Memphis, correct?
Yes.
And of all places that you ended up in Memphis.
Well, I was asked if I have any preferences as far as where would I like to go. So that's I think it's the first time crossed my mind. Like I don't want to be cold anymore. I was so cold in Poland. Any place where it's hot. If you have any place where there's no snow or where it's hot, I would really appreciate it. And how about Memphis? I said, as long as it's hot up there, yes.
Yeah, it's hot in the summer, but it still gets cold.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's not as cold. So they asked me what I know about Memphis. I say nothing except that Elvis Presley is from Memphis, but then I knew. So I came to Memphis to the United States, to Memphis. That's where I settled down first.
So you get to Memphis, and you get a job. You're living with other immigrants. You're living in a project, basically, is what you're saying. But
yes,
you used to write home, to call home to your mom and tell her how incredible it was.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't know any difference. I came in. I said, like, I have my own apartment. I even have air conditioning in it. So as soon as I could, I got on the phone and told my mom about it. She couldn't believe it. It's like, you're kidding me. I was serious. You have air conditioning in your house? Actually, why do you need it? Like in Poland, nobody had the time. So I said, well, because it's kind of warm here, but I'm glad I have it.
Memphis can get very warm in the summer.
It's very hard and humid, but it's my favorite place.
Yeah. So you were there, and that's where you became American citizen when you lived in Memphis.
Yes, it took me 6 years because it was not just come in and become U.S. citizen, and this is something for me very precious. By the way, just let me digress for a second. I always hear how great it is that I'm Navy SEALs, how difficult it was, and how proud I am to be Navy SEAL. Yes, but there is something that is more dear to my heart as being American citizen, U.S. citizen. So that trumps anything. So like on my clothing, you never see a trident, like small tridents. Some SEALs try to pin it. I have American flag, and I think that encompasses everything to the Navy SEAls.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm proud to be an American and being a freeborn American and striving to keep that freedom. I'm thankful that I grew up in a small town in Arkansas that kind of put that into my way of thinking and into my behavior and my mindset. But the fight for freedom is, and what we're doing now, I think is just as important and in a lot of ways just as personally meaningful and satisfying as going through SEAL training and doing the things that we did operationally, because this is the front line now.
Yes, exactly. We are in danger of losing our freedoms. If you look to these cooks and in Democratic Party now, it's just like I would be reading the Pravda, the Moscow magazine, newspaper, or Polish communist magazines. These people are spewing hate, and they hate to America and the way we are. They really try to destroy the things that we have and build their own fantasy on it. And remember, that was tried many times around the world, and it always ended up in tragedy and millions of lives lost.
When you
and if you take a closer look who these people are,
yeah.
One is a cultural thief, a woman claiming to be an Indian. I think I have as much Indian blood in DNA, or maybe even more than she does.
Right.
But it is convenient. Another one is a lousy hippie, Bernie Sanders guy who never held a job, as being millionaire. How did that come about? You know what is disturbing for many of these people? The service to the country become a job and money-making scheme, including, look at the criminal enterprise of Biden's. You know, the drug mule, Junior, with his daddy, are fleecing Ukraine now. They were caught. So, of course, they are mad.
Yeah. So you were in Memphis. You became an American citizen after 6 years, and then you that same day you went and enlisted in the military.
Well, pretty much a couple of days after it, because there was the first Persian War going on, And me becoming a U.S. citizen, it was it had such an impact. It was. I just wanted to do something for my country. I was poor. I didn't poor. I mean, I was rich by Polish standard, but I wanted to do something. I couldn't build the jobs. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the skills, but I could fight for it. So yes, I went to try to join the army first, because I didn't know much about. I didn't know the difference between Navy and Army at the time. For me, military was a military, just one military. And I also didn't know how to go about it. So I filled the draft card. What do you call it? I forgot. I think you remember, Jonathan.
Selective service.
Selective service card. So I filled it up. I sent it off. I worked to my skydiving friends. And I told them, listen, guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to war. I'll come back. I will resume my life. So I packed my stuff and wait. Like 2 weeks later, nothing happens. A month later. So the guys are, like, my friends are asking, are you going to military? I say, yeah, I'm just waiting for them to take me. I had no idea at the time how to go about it. Eventually,
you thought by filling out your selective service card that you were going to be drafted.
I thought that this right in Poland that was you filled it out. You were going to military, and you had to do it. It was compulsory in Poland. So I was just waiting for them to just take me in, and eventually the letter came in that I'm sorry, but I'm too old for this. I don't. That the selective service doesn't apply to me. So I figured out maybe
screw it. I'm going to go in anyway.
I'm going to go in anyway. Yes, I went to Army recruiting office and told them what I want to do, and they say sure, absolutely. They check my paperwork. They start processing me, and maybe like month or 2 months later, I was pretty much ready to go. But like I said earlier, I was skydiving. At that time, actually, I was teaching skydiving to young people. So I was AFF jump master. And the Navy SEALs, they came to Memphis to leapfrogs guys to do demonstrational jumps. So we talked, and they convinced me to go check with the Navy recruiter also before I joined the Army. And I sure did. And I liked it so much. They actually showed me about the Navy SEALs, this old movie, from like 50s or 60s. But I really liked it. I said, yeah, really, that's interesting. I really would like to do it. And what do I need to do to begin Navy SEAL? So I said, just go to next door to Army guys, take your paperwork, and we finish it for you. Okay, I did that, and Army did not really like it. But sure, I did it, and I signed all the paperwork, and I was informed that me and my age, I'm on the way past the age that you are allowing to the Navy SEAL training. But they say, like, don't worry about it. Once you go to boot camp, they will make you a SEAL. It's like, sure.
That is the dumbest lie that they tell, but everybody believes it.
Right. Yeah, like, don't worry about it. They will make you a SEAL. You just got to tell them you want to be a SEAL. But, for me, it doesn't really matter. I was not there to be a Navy SEAL. I just was there to participate in the war, and fight the war on behalf of my country. So that was most important. So I said, well, okay, that's fine. I cannot be a Navy SEAL. You cannot guarantee me entry into DIFER program. They call it DIFER program. But I can, so I can do something else. I'm a skydiver, so maybe something in this field. So, and I was told that there is a field actually in the Navy. They call it parachute rigger. So I said, that sounds good to me. And then I was told that because of the scheduling, if I want to go to military, into parachute rigging program, I need to leave on, that was Monday, I was told I would have to leave on next Saturday. And since the paperwork was finished, I didn't think twice. I said, absolutely, take me in. So on Thursday, I was sworn in that program, and Saturday I left to Great Lakes to boot camp. And that was kind of quick. I didn't expect to be that quick. But I never intended to serve 20 years. I just wanted to go for the wartime, to contribute to the effort, to be a valuable citizen. And I just never left. I stayed 20 years.
That's incredible. So when you got the buds, right, and you start going, you were older. You were one of the oldest guys who's gone through buds. You were
well, I'm in the group of the oldest people ever graduating from Bart at the time. Yes.
and you were how old when you went through there?
I was 33.
33.
33.
Yeah, I was 28 and then turned 29 while I was in there. I believe that's right. And then I went to Ranger School at 30. And I don't think people realize even from 24 to 27, your body's changing. But definitely by the time you get 30 and you're going through that training, it's exponentially harder.
You can see
on your body.
You can feel it, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the mind is strong. The mind, I think that where you kind of balance that is that you're, as a 30-something-year-old, your mind is much stronger than it is when you're in your early 20s. We had a guy that was 17, actually. He got a waiver to come in because he'd already graduated high school. So there are young guys. He made it through, you know.
Yeah, what was motivating me more is that my country invests money into me to go to this training. I cannot waste it. I cannot just go and fall out of it.
Right.
I want to serve my country, and I want to do well. So no, it never crossed my mind to quit. It was taking the balls.
Do you remember a hardest thing? The thing that you not that made you say I'm going to quit, but made you say, man, this may not be worth it, or this just sucks.
Yeah, the eye opener, yes, of course. It was Sacramento Island. That's the third phase. The first, everybody is focused on Hell Week. But you go to Sacramento Island, it's like a hell week on steroids. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you're wet, cold, and tired. But now you handle guns, you shoot live ammo next to your peers, and working with explosives, shooting and moving. It's at the time you're always tired, cold, and I was always hungry. So,
the hardest one, the hardest day for me, out of all buds, was a day when we had to do buddy rescues, where you jump in the pool, and the pool's, I think it's 50 meters long, 25 meters wide. So we would take turns. You'd swim to the other side of the pool, dragging your partner. Then you would switch, and they would drag you back, I think. Or we'd drag them both ways, and then we'd switch.
Drag them both ways.
Yeah, and it was a rare day in San Diego when we were there because we were a winter class. And so it was actually quite nice out that day. And the sun was beaten down. However, it wasn't warm. I mean, it was probably in the high 50s. With very little breeze, and it was a rare day like that. So we were going back and forth, and they would pull us out every, 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. They'd pull us out. They'd have a stand on the side of the pool. The sun would beat down on you, and people don't know this, out of fact, is that they keep the swimming pool at like 71 degrees, so it's really cold. I mean, it's like cold bath water. And so they would let that sun dry us off, and then they would make us jump right back in. And they did this for over 3 hours. And I remember standing out there, and the sun was beating down on me, and I just was like, man, I don't want to get back in this water, because this is an exercise that we literally could do all day and not get hurt. But it sucks so bad. And that was I didn't think about quitting. I just thought to myself, This is really bad. This is really bad.
It is, but I tell you even worse is, so for me the bath was just, I went in, got kicked in the balls, beat up, and came out warrior. But when I came back years later to Coronado as a SEAL instructor, when I was watching what we were applying to these young guys, I really, I wouldn't say scary, but it really created a new perspective on everything. Because I don't remember a lot from it. I was just doing what I was told to do, and I never questioned anything. I went with it. But after coming back and as an instructor and watching it from the side and applying these methods to my students, really taught me a lot of respect for these young kids.
Yeah. Young kids. Sound like you said Yankees.
Oh, young kids, yeah.
Listen, I'm always forever going to be not criticizing, joking with you about your accent, because tell everybody how you learned how to speak English.
Yeah, hey, brother. Of course, I don't mind it at all. You know, it's brotherhood. We know each other, and actually, I need your help sometimes. You can correct me anytime you want. But you have to remember, I learned English on my own because when I came to America, I didn't speak English, and I had only a bag of clothes with me. So my first job was a janitor in the church, and also, before even I go any further with this, I need to tell, I would never succeed, maybe. The way I succeeded in America, if not American people. When I came in, just citizens, they took me to show me where to live, what to eat, where to buy things. They showed me how to do groceries, and helped me find my first job as a janitor. But of course, I was doing what I could do, what I was able to do. You know, and I was able to be a janitor. I didn't have to speak, but I could do work with my hands and on my legs, and that was fine. But meantime, I was trying to learn English, so I couldn't afford school at the time, and or books, but I could afford comics and watch cartoons. So, so the effects you can see even today of it. But this is how I started learning English, with cartoons and with the comics. So I had a map and back in one hand, and cartoon and comics in another hand.
That's hilarious. So you went from freedom fighter to janitor and learning English by watching cartoons and reading comics to becoming a Navy SEAL or American citizen and a Navy SEAL. And having a storied career, you know, you got to do a lot of things in the teams, and you got to go back and be a BUD/S instructor, which I'll tell you, that is the one thing that I've not gotten to do. Is I wish I could have gone there and been a guest instructor or something. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are former SEALs that could do that or have done that.
Very rewarding.
I would love to see this and be a part of that and watch these guys. I remember. I know you got to go here in a minute, but I want to tell this story real quick and then finish with what you see in this country. But I remember we were in Hell Week, and it was like day, I don't know, 3 or 4. It was like Wednesday or Thursday, and we were running from the base over to the Chow Hall, and you got to cross over the Silver Strand Highway. And so they have these, it's like something out of a movie. They have these big white Suburbans with lift kits and big tires and police lights on them, and they pull out and block both lanes of this 4-lane highway, and then we run across the road with those boats on top of our heads. Just, I mean, you got to, people that are just listening to this for the first time, what Drago and I went through, and many other men, or very few men actually. By the time you get to Thursday of Hell Week, you look like a concentration camp victim. I mean, you're just destroyed. And we were kind of, running. It was a slow trot across the road. And I remember being under the boat. We're carrying these boats that weigh like 300 pounds when they're wet and sandy. And I look over, and a lady, hard for me to tell this because it still chokes me up. A lady is looking at us, and she put her hands over her face, and just, I could see, I was that close. I could see her crying. She was so shocked by this image of what she was seeing. And they know what it is. I mean, they're residents there, and people were like, giving us thumbs up and stuff. And that was probably one of the most proudest moments in my entire life, because I knew what I was doing. I was doing for those people right there. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for them.
You see, there's so many things, so many great things about America. But I think that one of the more important things is you can be what you are able to be. There is nothing to stop you. I'm not saying what you want to be. If I want to be an astronaut today, being 60 years old, that wouldn't work. But definitely, I can be what I want to be, what I'm able to be, and that is so beautiful. There is again nothing to stop you. It's just you. And I'm just hoping that socialists don't come here because that thing will stop. And I would like your listeners to remember, too, that everything I have, from my bag of clothes to my family, my wife, I owe to America. And I will never forget that. And I am American. I am not something hyphen American. I don't believe in it. I'm just American. And I'm very proud American.
So,
I am very proud American.
and we're proud to have you here, man. I mean, because this is the reality of what you were following in the footsteps of those people who originally came to this country and our founding fathers. I mean, you and your story is exactly why they created this country. And but I know you got to go. I want to finish with this real quick.
Well,
I'll give you the last.
I would like to finish with one thing too.
Yeah.
I hear very often people coming to me and say, "Thank you for your service. Thank you for your giving to our country." My answer is, I try to correct them that is not quite that way. This is me who should say thank you because I'm living as a free man. I owe that freedom to America and its citizens. So I'm trying to pay it back. But how can you pay freedom back? You can't.
Well, you can. I'm telling you, you're doing it right now because what you're doing is. Well, you've already paid it back in spades. I mean, the majority of us are born here free. We're born free. You were not born free. And so we see things in a completely different way unless we've served and we see the real price of freedom. And I think that you have done us a service by showing what we should be striving for. That's the reality. It doesn't matter that you weren't born here and we were, that we need fighters to fight for our freedom on the battlefield and at home, or otherwise we're going to lose it. But I want to ask you this one thing before you go. What if you had to tell the American people, and we'll have you back on to talk more about this stuff, but what do you think is the one thing that all these young people or people that are going astray to the left, what can they do to see? I mean, here, let me get the question right so I can ask it right. What advice would you give to them to set them straight, Drago? To set them straight.
Well, I don't think people who stray so much from reality into socialism and communism, you can set them straight. Those are pretty much a lost generation. But how we can fix it and what we can do is to monitor what our kids are being taught in the schools. Seems like this is what I see very often. Parents just let the school run amok, let the school run and teach the kids whatever they teach them, and they don't even know what the schools are teaching them. Mm-hmm. And this is why we have these 72 72 genders. I'm talking about Islam. Right. So we have this 72 genders right now. We have people who don't know if they are men or women. They are confused, and it's just preposterous. We need to monitor what kids are learning at school, and we need to correct things that are not right, that we believe are undermining our country, our faith, our patriotism, or anything that Democratic Party is doing right now, that undermining our moral values, our patriotism, demeaning patriotism, mm-hmm. and our faith. That's very dangerous.
It is very dangerous, and it's a sad state of affairs where this country is heading, and hopefully, with men like you on our side, we'll be able to continue the fight here and correct this journey that we're going down, because it's not a good one. But listen, Drago, I'll have you back on here. I want to thank you, and I've mentioned throughout this show, and I'll continue to mention as the show progresses, about Connect Zing, which is another thing that you created, where it is a Facebook killer where people can go, they can sign up, connectzing.com, and it's just like Facebook, except it has no censorship. So you're not going to be censored there. And it's another great thing that you've done.
Yes, it's a totally different feel from Facebook. It is like Facebook, into the same thing what you can do on Facebook, but you are free there. You don't have the Marxist censorship, and it is not data mining. Like basically, the Facebook become a tool to collect data on for Marxists and for Democratic Party.
And I agree with that, and I don't think most people see that. They think that they're collecting their information for monetary gain, but the reality is, no, not only. Exactly right. Hey, listen, God bless you, brother. Thank you very much. Have a great night, and I appreciate you dedicating all your time to getting this word out there. And then it'll be out here in a day or so, and you'll be able to put it up on connectzing.com.
Thank you for having me over. Thank you so much.
You got it, brother. Thank
Bye.
you. You got it. So there you go. I mean, that is such an incredible story, and it's one that I hope people take to heart, both liberal and conservative. As I will continue to say on this show, it does not matter whether you are liberal and conservative. Freedom does not see those ideologies. It sees the Constitution, and it sees enemies that need to be defended against, and it sees a citizenry that must step up and defend it. That's what freedom sees, and that's the litmus test. Are we following the Constitution? That is what people should be focusing on, not whether or not Steyer can fix the atmosphere, or the global warming, or climate change, whatever they're calling it now, or these idiot narcissists who believe that they can just tell you, or not believe, this is what they do. They tell you what you want to hear without offering any real solutions. They just point out that what you think is a problem. You got guys like Drago. That should be your standard. If these people don't live up to that standard and experience, they should not be leading the country. It's not rocket science, folks. You pick people who are in the know, and you pick people who have the right focus. I have met more people over the past couple of months, and then Drago I've known for years, but that are from another country and came over and either got into politics or the military, and they have done more for their citizenry or their citizenship than almost 100% of the people that I know that were born here free. Shouldn't be that way. It just shouldn't. But it is that way. And for some strange reason, that has become the way that things are. We got to rally against that, folks. Whatever you read in the news and the things that you see in the news, remember this. The news and events that happen in this country are because of our lack of involvement. The fake news is because of our lack of involvement, of understanding who should be in charge and standing up and saying, we will not put up with this propaganda. The politicians the same way. Stop voting these people in just because they're Republican and Democrat. And one person is not going to make the difference. The people have to get together and make this difference. I can't say this enough. Folks, go join connectzing.com. Then go online at Amazon, order Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, the accompanying Threat Assessment Workbook and Defense Assessment Workbook. And then for the children, get The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And while you're at it, go ahead and go download this song, Octane by Burnos, on iTunes. And let's get motivated, let's get safe, let's get aware, and let's make this country what it's meant to be. And let's sustain it. And that's a free country. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. That's the truth. Remember, wherever you see this face or hear this voice, the truth has arrived. Peace. And we're out of here. That is the expert.